If you're thinking about going into business for yourself, you've probably heard or has been suggested to you to create a business plan. Do I think there's value in creating a business plan? Well, let's discuss the pluses and minuses. But I'm also going to show you how to create a traditional business plan, including how to get a free business plan template. Let's get to it. Hello everyone, welcome. Today we are unpacking what a traditional business plan is, what it is not, and who it's for. But before we do that, let's start by asking, is there even any point? I think it's a legit question because it is a lot of work, and the world of business is always changing and evolving, right? Not to mention the economic climate, the political climate, the society as a whole is obviously changing all the time, and it's changing so fast that it's hard to keep up with. So any plan we make today is likely to go in the trash can before you even have your first staff meeting, right? Not to mention, a full traditional business plan is a ton of work, like I mentioned. I mean, you're unpacking a lot of things. You're doing a lot of research. You're doing a lot of thinking and rethinking and a lot of typing and editing and retyping. Something you wrote earlier might even be in conflict with what something that you wrote later, right? So everything has to jive together, and all for something that might not even get read by someone other than your own immediate family, to which they will say, "Good job." And that's about the only satisfaction you might expect after your weeks of hard work. Putting together a full traditional business plan is a lot of work. And so it does beg the question, I think it's a legit question, is it all worth it? If it's all going to change? My answer is 100% unequivocally yes. It is absolutely worth it, and it's for all the reasons that I just stated. Now, when you have to put that much work into something, right off the bat, it's going to prove to yourself that this isn't just another idea that you came up with while you were standing in the shower. And for you entrepreneurs out there who have lots of ideas, I know you know what I'm talking about. When you take the time to research the industry and you take time to know truly who your target customers are, and you understand the overt and hidden competition and all of the other things that we're going to talk about, you come to understand your business and the industry at a level that very few people who just opt to get started and figure things out along the way. Let's face it, once you get started and all the busyness of operations gets going, it's like trying to design a play while you're standing on the 20-yard line in the middle of a football game. You have the noise of the crowd, that is the distractions of your business, and all of the other things which make it totally impossible to be truly strategic. No, the time to design the play, that is the time to create the plan, is when it's quiet, when you can actually take the time to assess the environment and assess everything that you have and how you can play your cards to the best of your ability. If you never take the time to do the research and account for what you have, it's very easy to get rattled the first time you get punched in the mouth, and it will happen, metaphorically, hopefully. So hopefully I've at least convinced you that a business plan is at least worth looking into. So who is a business plan for? So if you've been in business for, say, 10 years and you're fine with the way things are and you don't have any plan to change anything, maybe it's not for you. But if you're an entrepreneur with an idea and you just want to see if it has legs, or maybe you're already in business and you're planning on growing into a new market, or maybe you're thinking about offering a new product line or a service, maybe you're going to fundamentally change the way you do business, maybe you want to grow it to the point where you can sell it, I think it makes a lot of sense to create and go through the exercise of a business plan. In all of those scenarios, I would rather my business idea die on the table when all I have really expended is maybe just a few days worth of research, rather than spending a lot more time and money rushing into something that I haven't really thought through, which is the metaphorical equivalent of jumping out of an airplane and trying to figure out how to build the parachute on the way down. So let's get into creating a business plan. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat when it comes to creating a business plan, and I'm going to tell you that no matter the format, nearly all of them follow a very similar flow. I'm going to go through 9 steps to creating a business plan, and for those of you who would like them, I've created some free worksheets that will make this really super easy for you, and I'll put a link in the description for you. So let's get started. So step number 1 is the industry. Well, think about it. What is the overall industry, the business, or your new product line that you're going to operate within? What does that encompass? Is it in professional services? Is it food services or lodging or real estate, entertainment, retail, construction, trades, transportation? Look, there's literally thousands of industries. So I'm going to stop the examples there because I want to go have lunch at some point, but you get the idea. But I want you to think about the industry you're actually going to be competing in. For example, I work with a fair amount of real estate investors, many of whom do all sorts of stuff in the real estate world, right? But anytime I have an investor who says they want to get into the Airbnb business, I immediately point out that Airbnbs are not in the real estate business. They are actually in the hospitality business, and they compete in the hospitality business. So that should shift their focus to different competitors and different threats. So that's the industry. Number 2 is the specific product or service you're going to be offering. Think about this. How would you describe the product or service? And be really, really specific. What problems do you solve for your target market? And how do you make their lives better? I also like to ask that same question in the negative, meaning how would their lives be worse off if they didn't have this product or service? Number 3 is defining your target market. So think about this. Who is your ideal customer? I really want you to spend some time on this, and don't be afraid to niche down, meaning really getting real specific to the really down to the nitty gritty in terms of who you specifically want to work with, and start eliminating other people that necessarily are just on the fringe. I cannot overemphasize how important it is to get really clear on who is in your target market and who makes that up. The more time that you can spend on this here is, and the more specific that you can be as to who you really want to serve, it is going to be massively easier when you're actually trying to find them and market to them later. We're going to come back to that here in a second when we talk about the marketing strategy. But if you're interested in learning more, I have a video on identifying your ideal client avatar, and I'll make sure I connect you with that video at the end so you can get super clear on your ideal client avatar. Let's get to number 4, which is the demographics and market size. I want you to think about this. How big is the market you're looking at? And is the market growing or is it actually contracting? And you can get some of those data on the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or you can just get an overall sense in terms of how much, if you see other competitors entering the market, maybe there's competitors leaving the market, but you need to have enough liquidity and demand in the market you want to compete in, so you're going to have enough business well into the future. I'll give you an example. Say you want to open a roofing company, but you live in a town of 300 people. If the average roof, lasts about 25 years, what's going to happen when you replace all those roofs in a couple of summers? Obviously, you're going to need to look outside of just the town that you're in and make sure the market is one that you can operate well and well into the future. Number 5 is competition. When it comes to competition, I want you to think of direct, indirect, and latent competition. Let me define those for you. Direct competition is what you'd expect. It's the company that's going after the same companies as you and has the same, if not exact or very similar products and services as you. And maybe you do it a little bit differently, but don't be too quick to say that just because we're better than they are does not mean that they're not a competitor. Okay, that's direct competition. Indirect competition is a company that goes after your same customers, but may have a different product or service than you. Let's say that you're a contractor who specializes in bathroom remodels. An indirect competitor might be a company like Bathfitter, who instead of ripping out your old nasty bathtub, fits a custom liner over top the existing tub, which gives it a brand new look, and without the expense of tearing apart your bathroom, and you're not going to have to shower on your front lawn using a garden hose for 3 weeks. That would be an example of indirect competition. Latent competition is easy to miss because they don't look like competitors, right? A great example of latent competition came from a conversation that I had with a friend who owned a local IT business, right? And he pointed out that his biggest competition wasn't from direct competitors like Geek Squad. It was from the 17-year-old kid who lived with his parents, had basically zero overhead, and knew just enough about computers to fix problems for his neighbors. For him, his latent competitor was that was a threat that he had to know how to address. Maybe another example is maybe you're a property manager or even a contractor, and your latent competitor is the guy who thinks that he can do all of that for himself. Okay. After that, let's unpack number 6, which is your marketing strategy. When it comes to your marketing strategy, this will include things like all of your marketing efforts. For example, will you reach them with direct mail or billboards or internet ads? Maybe you'll reach them by going direct to customer, where maybe you're calling them directly from a list that you purchased, or maybe you're physically going out and knocking on doors. Now, keep in mind, each of those things is called a marketing channel, right? So direct mail is one channel, billboards is one channel, radio is one channel, right? Maybe cable television is one channel. So here, I want you to understand that because it's quite natural to want to sprinkle a little here and a little there when it comes to marketing channels. And it's quite natural to want to think that way. But here's the problem with that. This approach is generally not as effective because you're too diluted across too many channels for people to even notice you. It's way better to fill up one channel as much as possible before going into the next one. So keep that in mind when you're putting this plan together. If you're not really sure, open up Google and just simply type, "How do I find clients?" and see what you come up with. There are so many ways to do this that are low cost that you might not even have thought about. So use that amazingly creative entrepreneur brain of yours to find new ways to get the word out about your business. Lastly, keep in mind that being really clear on your client avatar and your target audience is really going to pay huge dividends here. For example, if you know your target audience is between the ages of 18 to 25, it may not make sense to advertise on Facebook since the largest audience on Facebook is between the ages of 25 and 34. Now, that changes all the time. I'm just using that as a quick example, but this is why your marketing strategy should also evolve. But to put it simply, you just want to fish where the most amount of fish are. One final thought, this is going to include your pricing strategy. Will you be premium priced, value priced, or somewhere in the middle? Let's go on to number 7, which is critical risks. This is generally where I would perform a SWOT analysis, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And you should look at all 4 of those factors from both a macro view, which includes the industry, the economic, societal, even political factors, all the way down to a micro view, which might be specific to your geographic location, the talent base of local employees, if you're going to hire local, even your suppliers, even down to your personal traits. Maybe you're a great salesperson, but not such a great manager. All of those things are things for you to consider. Keep in mind, some of this stuff may have been covered in previous sections, but remember, these are worksheets, and I encourage you to work through all of these things like a Sudoku puzzle. Work on the section that makes the most sense and come back to them as more data is revealed in your research. Let's move on to number 8, which is the financial segment. This is where a lot of people usually get hung up because they're like, "Oh, I'm not a numbers person." Well, look, you don't have to be a numbers person. You just have to know some basics, and here's some basics to get you started. You're going to create a pro forma balance sheet. Pro forma simply means projected. And a balance sheet is simply a list of what you own, which is your assets, of what you owe, which is your liabilities, and the difference between those two things is your equity. I have a video that will walk you through the financial basics in case you're struggling, and I'll make sure that is posted at the end as well. You're also going to create a pro forma income statement, which is projected sales numbers, projected expenses, and of course your projected net income. Another important document you're going to want to have is a cash flow statement, which covers the cash conversion cycle. That just means how long it takes for a sale to convert to cash actually in the bank. That is the cash conversion cycle. And some cycles are short, maybe just a few days, and sometimes cycles are really long, which could be months and sometimes even years. This is going to be really important for you to understand so you don't run out of operational cash as you're running your business. One last document you're going to need in the financial section, and this is going to be really important, is to have a break-even analysis and chart. This should show what level of sales you're going to need to reach in order to cover all of your costs. Keep in mind, as sales and production numbers rise, so will your costs. So make sure you're using an appropriate variable cost pricing model and not one that is fixed as your business scales up. What I mean by that is you're eventually going to need help, right? So your initial round of employees is going to grow. So to think that the number of people that can handle, say, $50 million in sales is the same number of people that are going to handle $500,000 in sales is actually very impractical. So make sure you bake in the cake the rising costs of doing business as the business expands. Even if you're not a numbers person, like I mentioned before, don't let this scare you. It's not that hard. It's basic adding and subtracting. Now, I realize this is easy for me to say since I have both a business and accounting background, but if you really feel that you're out of your element, just ask someone with a business or accounting background for help, or just simply reach out. We can hop on a quick call and I can get you sorted out pretty quick. I'll put my contact information in the description. The last is number 9, which is milestones and metrics. And I love this section because this is where you're going to show specific KPIs, which stands for key performance indicators, which will measure and track your progress. Now, I like to break my business down into 4 key functions, which is lead gen, sales, operations, and accounting. And I will create KPIs, key performance indicators, in each one of those areas. Notice that I said key performance indicators, not all performance indicators. If you get too much data, it's going to leave you in the weeds. Just pick out the KPIs that make the most sense in each of those 4 core business functions: lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting, and be prepared to measure and track your progress. This video is starting to get a little long, so I'm going to land the plane, but there are some other areas you'll want to consider, such as your management team, your organizational structure, your legal structure. Is it going to be an S Corp, C Corp, LLC, partnership, whatever? If you're going to have a board of directors, which I definitely suggest, especially as you scale up, and other consultants and other things that you're going to need to worry about. But these first 9 items are going to help you work through the mental exercise of all of this so you can get really clear at the end. Once all of this information is gathered, you're going to want to put it in the proper format, which usually starts with an executive summary, the company description, and all of that works all the way through to your financial segments and your milestones and metrics. Your business plan may also include an appendix, which will include things like charts and graphs and photos and any citations that are relevant to your research. And please, please, please keep track of your research along the way. The last thing you want to have to do is try to figure out where you found a critical piece of data and you're trying to figure out what website you looked on and you have no earthly clue where you got it. Remember, these worksheets are all available for free, and I'll leave that as a link in the description. One last thought: there's a real benefit for owners and entrepreneurs to do a business plan, especially if you're going to be seeking funding. Investors, bankers, venture capitalists, those folks are going to want to see that you've thought things through as much as possible. Even if you're not going to be seeking outside funding, like I said earlier, it helps you determine as much as possible if this endeavor is even worth pursuing. Here's the link to the videos that I mentioned earlier. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.